as time goes, especially when you can't even go anywhere with all of this COVID news. You know, the news continues to be pretty bleak on the numbers here and people dying and sick in hospitals. And you've heard it from people other than me. Wear a mask, man. Keep socially distanced. Wash your hands. I know Thanksgiving's coming and we want to see our families. But, you know, we could see light at the end of the tunnel. We need to hang in here another couple months and hopefully put this in the rearview mirror. I hope so. Anyway, we've got a great TechStrong show for you today. Keep you occupied with what's going on in the worlds of digital transformation, DevOps, cybersecurity, and cloud native. Let me tell you a little bit about who we have on for today. Number one, I have Don Foster, who's been with Commvault for 18 years. Don's a VP at Commvault. Of course, Commvault's a pretty well-known company, security, infrastructure. Commvault recently came out with some news around, you know, the trends they're seeing around Kubernetes and cloud and digital transformation, you know, gaining momentum. And we're going to talk to Don about that and what Commvault is doing about it or around it. So that should be a good interview. And then I'm really happy to be joined by Chris Ford, who's a VP over at ThreatStack. And Chris is going to talk to us a little bit about machine learning and security and how we're, you know, we in some ways, depending how you measure, you know, where it's making a difference. And machine learning is here to stay, especially as part of cybersecurity. After that, we have two interviews from All Day in regard to All Day DevOps. Of course, All Day DevOps was last week. It was the 5th year of All Day DevOps, another great show. I forget if it was 120 speakers. Excuse me, something like that. But you can, I think, already see some of the stuff from last week over at All Day DevOps. These two interviews are with Mooksoft CEO Phil T. and with Sonatype's Michelle Duffy. So please go check, well, we'll have them both up here for you to check out. After that, we have, well, it's Monday, so we have a Cyber Hero Adventures episode with the one and only Gary Berman. Gary's guest today, Kevin Tierney, VP Global Cybersecurity at General Motors. So Gary's doing good stuff there, and this should be a really good show. Next up, we're going to turn things over to Charlene O'Hanlon, our Chief Content Officer and Managing Editor. Charlene has the news around the Media Ops websites today, as well as a great preview of some exciting webinars. We have some really good webinars this week. I'm looking forward to them. And Charlene also has an interview with Ian Pitt of LogMeIn. He's the SVP and CIO there. And they've recently come out with their State of IT in a Remote World study. So that should be a good one. At that point, we'll turn things over to Mitchell in the Analyst Corner. And Mitchell has a good interview with Nana Bendov of YL Ventures. YL Ventures is really an interesting company. They kind of led the wave of venture capitalists investing in Israeli companies very early on, and then helping them as they grow and sort of migrate, or at least sales, management. A lot of times R&D stay back in, and engineering stay back in Israel, but some of the company moves to the U.S., and they've had a lot of success with that. They have their CISO quarterly circuit report out, and Mitchell speaks, as I mentioned, to Nama Bendov on that. So that should be a good one. And then I'll be back to close things up. We've got about 2.5 hours worth of material for you today. We think it's a really worthwhile 2.5 hours. Watch it intently, play it in the background, rewind it, stop it, whatever you need. But we're here to keep you informed, keep you up to date, help pass the time, as we all have lots of work to do. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with our first guest. So, you know, when companies like Commvault are putting out news and releasing information about their plans around things like Kubernetes and an increased emphasis on cloud and digital transformation, that stuff's getting real. And Don Foster, my next guest, is a VP at Commvault. He's been there 18 years. And Don is going to talk to us about some recent news from Commvault as they see these trends accelerating and how they're going to help their customer base leverage them. So here's Don Foster from Commvault.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on another segment for TechStrong TV. My guest this segment is Don Foster of Commvault. Hey, Don, welcome to TechStrong.
Hey, thanks, Alan. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you on board here with us. Don, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of your background, a little bit about Commvault. I think most of our audience has heard of Commvault, certainly, but they may not know a lot about it, or maybe they think they do. Give us your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, my name is Don Foster. I'm our Global Vice President for our sales engineering team. So essentially strategy, how we take our products to market, talk with customers, and help highlight our value, right? My history, I've been, believe it or not, with the company for quite a long time. It'll be 18 years this January, in a number of different roles, from marketing and product management, as well as being in the field as an SE as well, talking to customers about some of their challenges. From a Commvault background perspective, I think, like you said, most everyone knows us for sort of where our roots came from as a data protection company. We've been working quickly to modernize and really help adapt to new technology workloads. But really what we found has become really interesting, especially probably for the audience that's with us today, is how we can help speed sort of the usage of data, maybe speed the creation of new modern applications attached to new application environments. Obviously, Kubernetes is fairly hot. And to really just simplify some of the processes that come in creating and modernizing applications. So we continue to do that core business of data protection and disaster recovery and maintaining really solid coverage and helping customers be ready. But really the new parts of our business are about helping to extend that data for other usage use cases.
Sure is. So, Don, in other years, right, not 2020, we'd have a great conversation here. We're coming up on Thanksgiving in a few weeks, and we'd be talking about, what kind of lessons we've learned this year, what we see coming forward in the future. And of course, we're still going to have those conversations, but any of those conversations today are kind of, there's an elephant in the room of what's gone on with COVID and
the pandemic,
the
yes.
fact, yes, we're sitting here looking in on your house, and instead of an office, and you haven't traveled, I'm sure, in some time. So let's talk about that. What has been the impact, you think? I mean, it's an unusual year, to say the least. What kind of lessons has Commvault learned? How do you think it's kind of changing what we see coming down the pike?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. I remember when the pandemic first kicked in, one of the things that we realized is, okay, it might be challenging for us, but for our customers especially, this is super challenging times. So we definitely put in extra hours to ensure that we were there for our customers. We even extended a couple of offers for customers and just how we can ensure that they're being protected and try to make their sort of entrance into the new normal, which now almost seems normal because we've been in it for so long, as simplified as possible. But I think what was probably the most interesting twist that came out of this, and I definitely didn't expect it to happen. And of course, hindsight's 2020. So looking backwards and starting to do some of these conversations and surveys and what have you, you start to realize that the unexpected outcome of what this pandemic has done, especially for IT folks, is it's really accelerated that digital transformation journey. I remember going back and talking with a number of industry experts back in like 2019, 2018 timeframes. And it was, 2025, 2026, we think that will really be the timeframe when we'll see a fair amount of acceleration in digital transformation because there's all these technologies coming, Kubernetes being one of them, seeing cloud mature, all the different cloud native services. And what's really happened was the moment we were all put to work from home, enterprises everywhere, small businesses everywhere started to turn to all the different, service providers, all the different as a service offerings, and different cloud providers, and start figuring out how do we digitize and help kind of get out of the business of building IT and starting to get these outcomes in. And together with that came this massive application modernization push, because in order to be competitive in the pandemic world, you have to be able to reach who your customer is remotely. And not everybody was set up for that. So there was this massive acceleration that occurred, and customer meetings that we are getting involved in was, okay, by the end of this year, right, if this pandemic is still around, we have these sort of marks that we have to achieve that are about moving to cloud or getting out of the on-premises game, helping to drive more automation. And it was interesting, I read an article that interviewed 1,000 CEOs, and they said the pandemic, 89% of them said the pandemic has seen the digital transformation absolutely accelerate, and it's not going away. So that consolidation was just a really interesting sort of, impact of what the pandemic brought.
Absolutely. There's a theory in physics that you can't travel backwards in time, right? Time, it's just an arrow pointing, this way. You can't go back in time. And I think there's a similar theory in the use of technology, is that, once the genie's out of the bottle, you don't put it back. So all of this digital transformation, all of this progress, if we can call it progress, that's been made over the last year, it's not going to go away because a vaccine for COVID comes out or something like that, right? These are investments already made that have been made. And look, I miss traveling. I miss a lot of things about this situation. But I do love a lot about how we can do anything online now, right? I mean, I haven't been in a supermarket in months, right? I haven't been, but yet, I'm constantly amazed, not every week, when I have to take the recycling out, how many Amazon boxes there are and so forth, right?
Yeah, I talk with my kids, and I always tell them, would you ever expected that if you needed something in 2 hours, Amazon would have it at your doorstep, 10 years ago? And my daughter's like, mind blown.
All of but you know what? So here's the thing. Kids, they're digital natives. They're I don't know, my kids are a little older maybe than your kids, but you know what? These kids are growing up expecting that. To us, it's like, wow, this is crazy, but it's not going away, number one. Number two, though, it's also created some challenges, right? Because all this transformation, let's be real, it's not done. It's not done without a lot of hard work. It's not done without a lot of, pushing rope uphill a little bit. There's security concerns. There's what technology should I use concerns. Who do I partner with concerns, right?
Well, and bringing up Kubernetes, for example, right? It's been the hot buzz term for like the last 5 years. It really has. And it's really grown in the last 24 months. And then in the last 8 to 9 months, we've seen a massive number of projects really start to drive this whole application modernization push. But here's the funny thing, is we're just now getting into persistent storage and the ability to think about how we're actually keeping data persistent along with the ephemeral applications that tie it together. There's a lot more complexity with that. And we're still defining what the standards are for what the next gen application needs to be, right? So to your point, I mean, we're going to stub our toe. We're going to hopefully fail fast, turn really quick, make amends, figure out how to make it work. And I mean, ultimately, that's also where Commvault wants to be, not only for the traditional IT, but also for the new application developers, the application modernization folks, is to help deliver those solutions that can help them quickly pivot, scale for the enterprise, and also kind of map out across all the different environments they're trying to leverage.
I for sure. I know you guys recently kind of were making some announcements around this, right? So what I don't want to get you in trouble, but what specifically, or any kind of ideas can you tell us about what's Commvault doing to help people with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, about 5 months ago, actually, so I'll back the story up a little bit. Basically, a year and 2 months ago, we acquired a company by the name of Hedvig. Hedvig is a software-defined storage company. Upon acquiring them, one of the main reasons we did it was because of some of the native container interface, container storage that could provide in that software-defined platform. It works across multiple clouds, on premises, et cetera. In the past summer, we released a whole new slew of CRDs, basically custom resource developments or resources for the Kubernetes ecosystem. What that basically meant was the typical sort of storage technologies that you would expect from your storage arrays. We made that programmable objects, pieces that you can define and execute against with Kubernetes and containers in general. So that spans into the cloud. It gives customers the ability to really manage their DevOps organization in a really interesting way, in which they can synchronize workloads and different persistent volumes from, say, Amazon to on-prem back to Azure, or a whole mix of multi-cloud scenarios. Because we all know development worlds that we live in today, there's never one development cluster, right? There's probably hundreds of them that are spread across the globe from where we work from. So that was one interesting piece leading up to where we are now. Where we're going, we've just added in support from a data protection perspective for Kubernetes apps. So discovering what lives inside of those clusters. You'll hear a lot about that here at KubeCon, on how we're discovering the actual persistent volumes, protecting those volumes, discovering the manifest, all the YAML configurations, the secrets, protecting all of that, much like your traditional IT would require, but providing that level of governance, security, and control that these new applications require. And then the other interesting thing is we have a SaaS product for customers called Metallic, and there's a really interesting piece of news coming out that will surround containers, and I won't go too far on it, but basically giving you the ability for that sort of protection through a SaaS environment. So some really interesting things that we're doing to give customers options, but then also give them prescriptive solutions to help meet those end needs.
Excellent. You know what strikes me is, as much as things change, some stuff stays the same, which is we may change to a Kubernetes, deployment infrastructure and everything, but things like governance and security, compliance, auditable, monitorable type of, processes, you still need them. Right.
Yeah.
And so, and then there are, of course, some people, Don, who say, well, look, what we did in the cloud, Kubernetes in cloud too, we already got it covered. But no, you need at the very least tweaks, if not outright, as you guys went out and bought a company that kind of had native Kubernetes interfaces and stuff, right? You can't just, I forgot what the term was, but like cloud, shift and lift.
Yeah,
I think that's the term, shift and lift.
Lift and shift, or shift and lift.
Lift and shift. It doesn't always work so good when you're dealing with this stuff.
Right, and actually, when you think about the lift and shift idea, most customers, so Kubernetes is and the container ecosystem is kind of like the next version of virtualization, right?
Yeah.
First was on-prem virtualization, then you had cloud native virtualization, and now we have this sort of really ultralight application virtualization platform. And what we've learned from the previous is lifting and shifting, or basically re-platforming or re-hosting workloads and just into another environment, isn't always the most efficient way, right?
No.
Pick up and drop it down, then before you realize, wow, either it cost me a lot of money or it doesn't quite work the way I thought it should within the ecosystem. And so then you think about refactoring, but then ultimately you get to this point where you actually just want to re-architect, because the technology becomes so mature and can allow you to do things that are so different that it's about re-architecting some of these older school platforms, ideas, applications, whatever it might be, and doing that in the new. And it's funny you said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. IBM did some research, and get this stat. This one blew my mind, and this is one I talk to customers about when we talk about security, right? In the year 2020, from Q1 to Q2, the number of ransomware attacks increased by 300%.
Yep.
From quarter to quarter in the same year. Talk about an impact that a pandemic has, not only for an on-premise IT, but just in IT in general for security. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, last week we do a reoccurring video series called CISO Talk, and we always have CISOs, and we had a woman from the IBM X-Force, and I can't remember her name this second, but we were talking about this, forget Q1 to Q2, I'm talking about right now. I forgot how you pronounce it, RYAQ, K, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
This new ransomware, Ryak or React.
React, yeah.
They targeted a couple of hundred, mid-sized health hospitals in the U.S. Some people are saying it's nation state behind it or what have you, but the bottom line is that these bad guys, these criminals, they don't miss an opportunity to miss a good crisis, right?
That's right.
You got to ask yourself what kind of human would attack a hospital in the middle of all that's going on, but that's a story for another day. And here's another instance, though, Don, to get us on a more positive note. Another instance of the more things change, the more they stay the same is we're starting to see people host Kubernetes back at their own data center on bare metal, not even in the, so they have these hybrid developments where I've got Kubernetes on my prem and in a cloud environment, and I want to manage them all together. So, these things don't die. They just